Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications. All right, folks, joining us right now here in Los Angeles for the XQ America live event here is the CEO, Russlynn Ali, of course. You might remember her working for the Department of Education. When she came on my Washington Watch show, she said I was too tough on her. But she was used to talking to those people who don't send their kids to public school on traditional television shows. So it's a little different. And also the Chief Strategy and Creative Officer, Marc, Ecko, as well. Hey, how we doing?
Hello, hello.
All right, glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
It's great that you came here for us, and this is amazing. Yeah. And look at how I'm just watching you quarterbacking all of this.
Well, you know,
this is you talk about the future of media.
Yeah.
Well, so the deal
studio,
is,
man.
So they're talking to me back at the studio. So I'm actually connected via Skype right here.
It's unbelievable
On that phone.
It's amazing.
And so we're tweeting, and I'm also watching the different streams, and people are commenting right now on all the different platforms.
I love it.
And so it's all good. But let's talk about this event. Let's talk about XQ.
And we can talk about you and being hard on me or not hard on me.
No, I'm trying to tell y'all, it was so funny because Russlynn was like, when it was done, she was like, okay, you would not let me off the hook. She said, you were pushing hard. I'm like, that's right.
That's right. That's right. But it was good stuff.
It was.
Because then when I was Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights for President Barack Obama, we were pushing hard on doing what was right for poor kids and kids of color in our country. And
so
that's what we're trying to do now, too.
You left the administration, came to
Yes.
Emerson Collective. Tell folks, how did XQ start?
Well, we started with the notion that we have to do something to help kids in our country, right? We started with the data. We look and we saw, Roland, you know this better than most, African-American, Latino 12th graders reading and doing math at the level of white 8th graders in our country. Every country developed and developing, outperforming all of our kids. So we started with knowing we had a big problem and how to solve it. We also, though, knew that we didn't have all the answers, that community would have the answers. Mm-hmm. So Lorene and I founded XQ on the notion that we were best as a country when we come together to solve big problems, that communities knew what they needed for their schools, and that an empowered community could design a school of the future. What we didn't expect was 10,000 people from across the country would come and join us. And together, we have developed out 19 models. We have a few states on the way, some districts, and we're really looking at showing what high school can look like for the planet moving forward.
And when we started with this idea of Rethink High School,
Yes.
Some people were going, this sounds sort of fishy. And it wasn't about tearing schools down. It wasn't about tearing teachers down.
Of course not.
But it was about forcing people to say, you can do this thing differently.
Yes.
You don't have to keep doing it the same way.
Yes.
And you can actually make it interesting and fun and be effective.
That's right. It was also learning from other industries. High schools have only been transformed twice in our entire country's history, after the War of 1812 and then again in the early 1900s. They have not kept pace with every other industry that has transformed and met the needs of a new society. It's about time high schools did as well.
Marc, when we met in Oakland, we were talking about this idea, and then you sent me this email. And I reference it in my speeches when I'm talking to people. So for the folks who don't know, so explain to them the information you sent me about Carnegie.
Yeah.
That literally explains exactly how we got to where we are now, and the problem that we're still doing it today the same way this guy laid it out in the 1800s.
That's right. Well, in the late 1800s, there was a gentleman by the name of Charles Eliot, who was an ed reformer of his time, of his day, who went on later on to become the president of Harvard, right? And in the top of the 1900s, when all of the secondary education, like colleges, were emerging all around the country, and Carnegie, being a guy who wanted quality control, was like, how do we organize this system so that we have some mechanism of quality control effectively, right? How do we create a quality control mechanism within our school systems? So it started actually in the college space, and they came up with this notion of seat time, right? the idea was, all right, well, we're going to incentivize the educators themselves at Harvard by writing. Carnegie wrote like a $10 million check, I think, at the time. Yeah.
What is now TIAA CREF.
Yeah. So he writes this, creates this incentive to say, hey, if you're an educator at Harvard, you could be eligible for this portion of this for tenure if you adopt this system that's going to organize how we organize the kids and measure the kids in terms of the student hour and seat time. And the problem with this is, at the time, this was a very brilliant idea in terms of how we organize time and space, the day, you know, the all of these things. And there's been a
lot. All kids.
What most folks don't realize is that, I mean, at that period, first of all, you're talking about 30 years after the end of the Civil War.
That's right.
Then you had, first of all, not a lot of white kids were going to going to school. In fact, in James D. Anderson's book, The Education of Blacks in the South, 1860 to 1935, he talks about that in Memphis, 92% of the black kids were going to in schools, while 41% of the white kids in D.C. were going to school.
Yeah.
And so as we began to move away from the Civil War, and then you talk about the Industrial Revolution, folks began to realize we needed an educated populace.
That's right.
Because poor whites and freed slaves, folks were not educated. It was really for well-to-do people.
Right. That's right.
That's right.
So this system came to bear, and
But at the time, to Roland's point, you had about 11,000 high schools in the country. No clear, some were doing farming, some were doing Latin, some were trying to do business. There was no clear articulation between the exit requirements of high school and the entry requirements of college. The system was in disorder. So what Carnegie brought was a real order to how we teach.
And when you say order, it was literally how desks are lines up, the process, raise your hand, you have a question, chalkboard.
We're so close to it. We're on the gerbil wheel. Like, we don't even know to think of it in a different way. That's how we say school, and automatically you get this image of the structure of the day, the summer, all of these things. And a part of why I wanted to join XQ is when I asked Russlynn, I was like, okay, what's the moonshot? She's like, is there a way to get to contemplate reimagining or completely rethinking the Carnegie unit? And that was I was so keen on that, because they got right to the systemic issue of like, all right, what is the thing that sort of unintentionally, 100 years later, I mean, it helped organize us for the better part of the last century, but the unintended consequences is now it's constraining us.
Right.
So these design constraints
choking us.
Of the past, it's like, look at you quarterbacking your studio here. Like, our educational system is not, like every other industry has migrated to suit us for our future needs. It's been more nimble, more portable. Our educational system, with good intentions, like, this is not an indictment on this part of our history, but it is time to say, well, what if the summer was 1 month and 3 times a year instead of 3 months and once a year? What if the day started at this hour of the day? What if people really got involved with their school boards in a way that they're not even contemplating? 8% of LA, only 8% of LA turned out for school board elections. 8%.
Right.
Okay, they don't even know who serves on the school boards.
$90 million annual budget.
That's right.
And 8% of the constituency turned out. $90 million annually, just $8 billion writ large, just in retirement funds, right? I mean, this is a complicated system, and 8% of the people turn out to even vote on how to spend the dollars for poor kids.
From a civic engagement point of view, there's a lot of opportunity to make this entryway, like education, the entryway for civic, because when you actually think about like other elected officials, there's actually a lot to be done at the school board level to shape your community, and people just they're just not alert on it.
So the reason this is so interesting to me, and you talk about how we totally think old way and new way. So I go back, I'm in Houston several years ago, and I go by my high school, Jack Yates High School, and I got some problems. And so I'm giving a speech to the black MBAs in Houston, and I basically put them on blast. And I say, I'm going to use my platforms, unless they fix it, to put the entire district on blast. Mm-hmm. Well, unbeknownst to me, at the event was HISD, Houston Independent School District, had a table there. and there was a board member who was at the table,
Uh-oh.
and my aunt was also a principal. They were all there, and so they sort of like lowered their sign, like, okay, we don't want anybody to know this is HISD table. And so literally 2 weeks later, I'm back at my high school in a meeting with the superintendent, the board president, the board member for that area, the chief academic officer. They brought all the principal, like the top leadership, just to meet with me. So they come in, so they give me, we have our basketball team has won 4 state titles in the last 6 years, so they give me a signed basketball, all this, and I'm like, y'all, I ain't here for all this. Mm-hmm. I got signed basketballs. Let's get down talking. So they present me this proposal, and we had school communications there. And so as we're sitting there, and they're talking, and they're talking about, hey, $65,000 for a low power antenna because we have a radio station on school communications, and they're like all this stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, y'all are having literally a 1980s discussion about the school of communications.
Yes.
And so I go through this plan. It's like 20 pages, and I go through it in about 90 seconds. And I read it all 90 seconds, and I just start obliterating the plan. Yeah. And then finally the superintendent goes, why don't we do this here? Why don't we close this plan and have Roland tell us what he thinks? Mm-hmm. And then I go, good idea. Let me bring y'all present day. The hell with the tower. You can live stream a radio show online.
That's right.
You don't have to spend $65,000. So we just start going through it. And I said, everything that y'all just laid out, we don't use anymore. Right. I said, you're talking about this camera here when this camera here costs this. And so we start going through these things. And then when I went back, so they changed a lot of stuff. When I'm back, and I did my show, my TV1 show from my high school. They literally had a system that the school had to spend about $5,000 to live stream. Mm-hmm. When I have a box that's $600.
Right. But you see how...
and I go, y'all are spending $5,000 for one system when I'm doing the exact same thing with a box for $600. What the hell are you doing? And they were like, and I said, don't you know that that's $400 that can go to something else, but you're forcing the school to use only one system to stream.
Right.
And I was like, you're stuck.
That's right. That's
and
right.
I said, you got to be unstuck.
But how do you unstick? So what we're here tonight for, right? Change of the magnitude that we are talking about, Roland, is more than most. It requires a cultural shift.
Right.
We have to change the way, the paradigm in which schools work, how we as a country prioritize it. We have to make them a movement.
Yep.
So one of Marc, as you know, had been a board member of XQ from the beginning, but he's a brand maker, right? Yep. This complex media. This is Ecko urban fashion. So the partnership here is how do we take these incredibly complicated, wonky, siloed systems, right, and make them palpable and digestible
and
for a country to participate.
Right.
That insight that you just shared right there, for instance, it's like, think about like that school, the person who was planning that budget wasn't, maybe let's give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe wasn't even ill-intended, but it takes community members that are entrepreneurial, that are coming from other sectors to realize that, if I'm going to shape what's around me, I could engage, like that insight. You didn't need to serve as a board member to give them that insight that was instantly valuable.
I'm a graduate.
Right. That's right.
So I care about
who are they going to hire?
That's
A consultant to do that? So the point is like, how do we activate more people out there to say, you know what? I can't necessarily run, but I'm just going to show up.
Right.
Just show up to the board. Do you know who serves on your school board meeting? Who serves on your school board?
There you go.
Right, so we have a big, if you go to our website, xqinstitute.org, you'll see we have a big initiative. One of our tools is we call it That's a School Board Thing, but we're trying to make this mainstream. How do we make this, I mean, forgive my language, but sexy? Like, we have to get people really hot about this.
If you want to know about a school board, you have to go specifically to that district. You would have to know that district's website, how to search on it. So we made a tool that you can just input your zip code.
Right.
And get information
you
about
could look
what's
it up. It's
happening
the
in
first
your
of its
schools,
kind national
right?
tool set. That's
well,
right.
this is, and the reason I'm excited about this is because what you're describing is what I've always done on my platforms.
Yeah.
Is getting people to understand you can't focus on D.C.
That's
You
right.
can't focus. No. Look, Betsy DeVos is the Secretary of Education, but the reality is that school board, trust me, if 30 people
That's right.
show up at a school board meeting, in
You could change a
consecutive
lot.
months.
Right.
You could
That's
change a lot.
One,
That's right.
it's going to scare the hell out
my
of every
gosh.
board member.
That's right.
Because they're not used to 30 people showing up.
That's right.
And I've said this to AKAs, to alphas, to deltas, non-Greek. I'm like, do y'all understand? I said, what happened if just take the black fraternity sororities. I said, if the deltas say, we going to take October, you take November, we take January, they're going to be like, okay, I don't know what the hell's going on, but why are there these people here?
$600 billion. School boards spend $600 billion
Yes,
Majority,
annually.
the vast majority proportion of funding is managed through school board
9
oversight.
cents on the dollar.
And then
right?
when you start to think about in some districts, like we're going to be in Chicago together. Some places, though, unfortunately, like we're sitting here for people in some communities out there, the school board's appointed.
Yes.
Right.
So you can't even,
Right.
it's not even a
Right.
elected
They're
thing.
supported. Mayor controls the school.
Yeah, so
I'm from
some,
Houston.
yeah,
It's
like
elected.
in Chicago.
but-
So just giving people these insights, and there's a lot of difference we can make, and we don't have to wait on DC to figure this out.
Well, look, we appreciate it. People, I mean, I'm looking at the comments and everything right here. Folks are commenting, and we're going to keep pushing this thing. And again, as you say, make it sexy.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is generational.
That's right.
This is literally, it's a generational thing. And again, I don't have children biologically. I've raised my nieces, but this is how we can change the game.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much.
I
Thank you for
appreciate
being
it.
here
All
tonight.
right.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
a bunch.
Thank you.
Thanks a bunch. I
Marc
appreciate it.
Unfiltered. Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.